Well, we are back now. It is 8:15 with our Women Are Essential series as we honor Women's History Month.
Yeah, we're doing this all across 4 hours of today. We had the honor of sitting down with the granddaughters of legendary women. So this morning, we get to hear from Kate Connor, who proudly calls the late Lucille Ball her Nana. This year marks 70 years since the birth of I Love Lucy. The timeless humor is still captivating audiences to this day. Her legacy lives on, and few are as proud as her granddaughter, Kate. I'm looking at you, and of course, I don't know if everyone does this, but they look at you and wonder, do I see her? Do I see a little bit of Lucille Ball, like, looking back at me?
And people are always kind of like, you look like Desi. Like, they don't expect me to look like him. They expect me to look more like her because I'm the next girl, I guess, in line. But I know I have her nose and her lips.
I know that you were 4 years old when your grandma, you called her Nana, when she passed away. Do you have memories of her from back then?
I do. She was really involved in my life at that time. I guess she was really happy to have another little girl. She would wrap my little tufts of hair in these curlers and put me in silk pajamas, and I'd have these wonderful, luxurious bubble baths, and I would sleep in her giant California king-size bed, and she would be there for all of that. Like, she loved being a grandma. She kind of finally had time to be the mom that she really, really dreamed of being from the beginning. She wasn't so busy anymore.
How beautiful is that? As Nana, Lucille Ball had more free time, but early motherhood for the starlet was spent working. I Love Lucy premiered in 1951, starring Lucille Ball, her then real-life husband, Desi Arnaz. A breakout success, the show spanned 6 seasons and became the most watched show in the United States. The show turned Lucille Ball into an international superstar. Her legacy sealed as the original funny lady and the standard for so many comedians who followed. What do you think it was about your Nana, about Lucille Ball, that captivated so many people?
Honesty. She was like honest to a fault, and some people took that as tough and feminism. But it wasn't really. She was a regular American girl who had big dreams and no idea how to accomplish them.
Lucille Ball is considered a trailblazer, breaking glass ceilings in the entertainment industry. I was thinking about, like, at 39, she had a child. That wasn't the case then. She was, like, in charge of a studio. That wasn't the case then. She was pregnant on the show. She talked about pregnancy. That wasn't the case then. But you're saying all of those cool things she did just because she was like you and me. She just wanted to live.
Yeah, she just kept pushing ahead. My grandparents didn't set out to change television. They wanted to have a family. They wanted to remain being a family. So I think that that's really important for people to remember as part of the history, because it allows us all to remember that we can all have families and work if we support each other in that. If we're together in us all wanting that balance, then we can find it.
A mom now herself, Kate is making sure her Nana's traditions are passed down.
We used to sit and watch Inspector Gadget together, and she would give me Oreos and milk and just sit behind me and play backgammon and just keep me company. And my son likes to do that now. I tell them that this is our Nana time.
These days, it's the stories from others that fill Kate's heart with a sense of warmth.
That's what I love about being the third generation. My mom usually gets the stories about the Hollywood connections. I get to hear all the stories of, I watched this with my grandmother. I watched this with my aunt while she battled cancer and survived it. I watched this with my siblings growing up. There are family generational connections now to watching this show together. That's the thing that really gets me. That's the thing that really makes me want to continue carrying the torch.
And what struck me is, I knew Lucille Ball, obviously, and Desi were a big deal. I didn't know how big. When Lucy and Desi had their children, Lucy and Desi, they said the viewership after Desi was born was higher than the Eisenhower inauguration and the Queen's coronation.
Wow.
I mean, that's how instrumental they were. So when I got to sit down with Kate, I was like, oh my God, this is pretty cool.
It also makes sense. We were talking about, I think last week, about Carl Reiner, the archives going to the National Comedy Center, which is in Jamestown, New York, Lucille Ball's hometown,
Right.
that you pointed out, Al. It makes sense now.
Yeah, and look, they invented the 4-camera sitcom.
Yeah.
Everything that's followed started
with
I Love
them.
Lucy with Lucille Ball.
That's
It's
so
hard
crazy.
to believe that the show itself was only on the air.
Yeah.
I know. I think it was on for
seasons.
20 seasons.
Yeah.
But they
it's-
had 2 different iterations after that. Here's
Right.
Lucy, the Lucy Show, and there was another one.
Yeah, it did live on. By the way, she and Desi, as you guys know, split. But anyway, Kate has some very cool I Love Lucy projects in the work. She's got a new line of products and experiences. She's so excited to launch in the next year, and fans will be able to see more about Lucy and Desi. And by the way, Aaron Sorkin, he's writing and directing Being the Ricardos. That's a drama about the famous couple with Nicole Kidman. She's going to play Lucille Ball. So the legacy lives on.
Yeah. And our Granddaughter series is going to continue as well. Just getting started. In fact, today on the 3rd hour, Chanel is going to introduce us to the only grandchild of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. We'll have that for you this morning. And then tomorrow here on Today, Jenna is going to share her conversation with Eleanor Roosevelt's granddaughter and her great-granddaughter.
I bet you they have a lot to talk about. You can only imagine. All right, but first, how about a check of the weather, Al?
All right, let's show you what we have for today. We are
Now to our special series, Women Are Essential. And in honor of Women's History Month, we're celebrating the ladies who've led the way.
Lucille Ball, Audrey Hepburn, and Eleanor Roosevelt broke down barriers in entertainment and politics and paved the path for generations to come.
Recently, Jen and I were lucky enough, we got to sit down and chat with the granddaughters of these lovely ladies and what they learned from their legendary ladies.
Says right here, we work miracles.
In the 1950s, Lucille Ball broke new ground in television with her series I Love Lucy, along the way becoming one of the most iconic entertainers of all time. But for Kate Luckinbill-Connor, her recollections of the war are a little different. You were 4 years old when your grandma, you called her Nana, when she passed away. Do you have memories of her from back then?
I do. She was really involved in my life at that time. She would wrap my little tufts of hair in these curlers and put me in silk pajamas. She loved being a grandma.
As you grew up after she had passed, did you have any idea, like, just how big she was?
I didn't watch the show a lot as a kid, and then I started watching it in my 20s. I called my mom one day, like in a tizzy, and said, Mom, this show is really funny.
Might have had a meaty match.
Of course, Lucille and Desi Arnaz were married for a time off-screen as well, after giving birth to Kate's mother, Lucie Arnaz, and later a son, Desi Jr. Lucille went on to become the first female head of a major Hollywood studio, Desi-Lu. Your Nana didn't set out to become an icon.
No. And she didn't even want to be the head of the studio. And she still called Desi all the time and said, what do? I don't want to do this. But she just did things because she had to, you know? She wore pants because she liked pants, not because she wanted to say women should wear pants.
Just as Lucille was ruling the small screen in the 1950s, Audrey Hepburn was making her mark on the big screen.
Well, hello, how are you?
Reaching a level of fame her granddaughter Emma Ferrer is still struggling to grasp.
I know you never got to meet your grandmother. How old were you when you realized the impact that she had?
I still haven't truly realized the impact that she's had. My dad sat me down probably when I was about 4 and tried to explain. And slowly I started going to friends' houses and seeing that she was in a poster in their kitchen, or I would see her on a t-shirt or on handbags. And I kind of was like, you know, I guess this actually is a bigger deal than I thought it was.
An avid dancer in her teens, Audrey was just 24 years old when she earned an Oscar for her role in Roman Holiday.
Thank you so very much.
You're in your mid-20s, which is when your grandmother was this huge Hollywood icon. How do you reckon with that?
When 21 rolled around and I was like, okay, what have I done? It's kind of like inevitable to compare and despair, as they say. It's like this dichotomy of wishing that I had had the chance to know her and also feeling like really intimidated by who she is and how like amazing she is.
Well, I've got a wonderful idea.
Audrey's role in Breakfast at Tiffany's solidified her status as a fashion icon, and some of her looks live on through Emma today.
I have like sweaters that I just have worn so much over the years, and I'll put it on and like forget that it's hers, and then I'll like be painting and be like, wait, no, don't get paint on this. Stop.
Audrey had 2 children, including Emma's father, Sean Hepburn Ferrer. In the 1970s, she stepped out of the spotlight and focused on motherhood. Later, she would embrace her role as a UNICEF ambassador, up until losing her battle to cancer at just 63 years old.
Sometimes it's hard to be connected to somebody that you didn't really know, but probably plays a huge part in your life. How do you stay close with her?
Having sort of begun my own journey working with humanitarian organizations, this has been a way for me to really kind of feel a connection to her in her UNICEF years. I think that she really revolutionized what we take for granted today, a celebrity of her magnitude associated with a cause like she was. I don't know if we can really appreciate how revolutionary that impact was.
Revolutionary is how many remember former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, including her granddaughter Anne Roosevelt and her great-granddaughter Tracy Roosevelt.
She was a person who said, I want things to change. I want my life to change. And then she just would go do it.
Something that was really important to her was making sure that women could stand on equal footing economically. I really do feel like she just set this amazing example.
Later known for her outspokenness, Eleanor was initially reluctant to step into the public eye. She became First Lady in 1933 at age 48, during her husband, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's first of 4 terms as president.
There was a quote where she said, I'm just going to be a plain, ordinary First Lady, which I think anybody that studied her knows that is not the case.
I really think she didn't want the role. She didn't want to have the spotlight trained on her. And so part of her was terrified.
She was very humble. And so I think that she thought sort of, why me? Why am I going to be in the spotlight now?
Eleanor went on to redefine the role of First Lady, holding press conferences, writing columns, and fighting for human rights. But to her family, she will always be Grandmère.
What do you feel like in your family her legacy has been?
We all have a love for Grandmère.
You see inspiration from Eleanor Roosevelt that we each take, because she was never afraid of standing up. She was not a bystander.
Generations of young people still resonate to her vulnerability, her humility, her determination, her courage to stand out, to not be silent.
Don't you feel so lucky that we got to have those conversations?
Well, yeah, and it's so interesting. Like, it doesn't seem like any of them really set out on paper to change the world.
No.
They just did. They just did.
Acted.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that both Emma and Anne said, and Tracy, they said, I would love to have a conversation with my grandmother again.
Oh my God.
I would love to see what they would think about these current events and how they would use their voices. And they both said that even though Emma never got to meet Audrey Hepburn, her grandmother helps her every day use her voice. And both Anne and Tracy said that, you know, that Eleanor really tried to say, girls, come here, learn to use your voice. You say, what you have to say is important. And I just thought that was so interesting.
I love that. And didn't you, when you leaned in, couldn't you see glimpses of like the eyes, the nose, the mouth?
Yes.
It was like weird interviewing. You just like lean and go, okay, I see Lucille Ball's mouth. It's right there in front of me. Interesting.
So interesting. And you can catch more of my interview with Eleanor Roosevelt's granddaughter, Anne, and her great-granddaughter, Tracy, tomorrow in the 8 o'clock hour.
Look forward to that. Okay, the good news for fans who can't get enough of Lucie and Desi, Aaron Sorkin. He's working on this upcoming film, Being the Ricardos. And by the way, Nicole Kidman will be playing the role of Lucille Ball, which is a ringer. If you look, I saw a mock-up thing.
Yes, I think that sounds so great. Okay, well, coming up next, Andy takes a break from his radio show to talk with us.
So watch what happens.
Oh, look, he's on the radio show.